This show is made possible by the patrons at patreon.com. Throughout video game history, it's always been common for the back of the box of a game to brag about how much stuff it had in it. While fewer games are being sold in physical boxes these days, the design pattern of overwhelming content hasn't gone away. People don't typically think of content as rules, but that's what they are. In the game Street Fighter, there's a character called Chun-Li. She's basically just a big package of rules that delineate her abilities, attributes, and moves. Not all rules are content, though. Content refers specifically to a subset of rules that are not necessary for a system to function. In other words, if you were to cut out Chun-Li from Street Fighter, the system wouldn't collapse. This distinguishes Chun-Li as content rules, as opposed to other kinds of necessary rules it has, such as health bars, without which the game can't function. Something being content, mind you, does not mean that it's automatically bad for a game. It's likely that some systems will be improved by adding a small amount of content rules. However, the current game design status quo is to overwhelm the player with massive amounts of content. Today I'm going to talk about some of the problems that come along with content in games. When you get to a certain point with adding content to a system, the idea of true game balance goes out the window. This is because each new piece of content actually exponentially increases the number of combinations available that a designer needs to keep track of. At a certain point, this simply becomes impossible, and the balancing work instead becomes all about simply hammering down the most egregious, noticeable problems. Even if in some cases adding content to a game does increase its value, there's a steep drop-off effect for each additional piece of content. This is because for any given system, there simply are a finite number of optimal configurations of rules, content or otherwise. You can't perpetually add new guns to your FPS and expect them to all be strategically valid, for them to fit into the demands of the game. Some are just going to be inherently more strategically valid than others. Designers do understand this, of course, which is why we won't get a weird gun that only can shoot through floors weapon in Team Fortress 2. So because the useful space for weapons is finite, adding new weapons perpetually means that you will eventually be designing weapons that step on the toes of other existing weapons. You will have two weapons that more or less do the same job, and one of those two is always going to be better, if even slightly, which means that you've now effectively just added a bit of useless noise to your game. League of Legends is an incredibly popular game, but the amount of stuff players must actually learn to actually play, to form coherent strategies, to make real decisions about which items to buy, to know how to pick and ban and champion select, is frankly unforgivable. You could achieve basic competence in a foreign language in the time it takes you to get to that point. And again, I'm not even talking about getting good at the game either, I'm just talking about learning what the rules even are. Most of the defenses of mass content are invalid. The most common one is, it brings a game more variety. This is only valid if your game wasn't interesting to begin with. If you have a strong core mechanism, the system itself should produce a wide variety of interesting situations. I hope that if designers understand the true costs of content, we can begin to rely less on content and more on developing robust, dynamic, and exciting systems. Thanks for watching.